Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be learning how to cut and sew this bucket hat. So you are going to measure around your head, the circumference of your head, and pen down that measurement. That is the measurement we are going to use to draft out our bucket hat. So if you're interested, continue watching and let's head over to my work table. So we are going to start by cutting out the crown. So the crown is a circle and I'm going to be using this pattern paper. So I'll fold it by 2 and I'll fold it again. So I'm going to be using my round edge circumference divided by 6.28. I did that and it gave me 3.3. So make sure you take the measurement of your round head. That is the measurement you are going to divide by 6.28. So I'm going to place my tape like this on the tip of this pattern paper and I'll take the 3.3 all the way around. After doing that, I'm going to connect the dots together. The next thing I'm going to do is to add stitching allowance to my crown. So I'm going to take half an inch all the way around and then I'll connect the dots. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. I'm done cutting and this is what we have for the crown. Is a full circle. So we are going to name this crown A. So the next thing we are going to do is to cut out the body for this bucket hat. So for the body, we are still going to divide my round edge circumference divided by 2. So my round edge circumference is 21. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. So I'm going to make use of this pattern paper. It's not folded anywhere. The first thing I'll do is to take 1 inch all the way to the end of this pattern paper and I'm going to connect all my dots into a straight line. After doing that, I'm going to determine how wide I want the body to be. So I'll make it 2.5 inches because I don't want it to be too wide. So I'm going to take the 2.5 inches and I'm also going to connect the dots into a straight line. So the next thing I'll do is to determine the the length of this body. So like I said before, my head circumference is 21. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. So I'm supposed to mark 10.5, but you can see me marking 12 because I want to be on a safer side. If it's too much, by the time I'm done sewing, I will cut it out. So I took 12 inches. I'm going to connect all these lines together. The next thing I'll do is to add stitching allowance all the way around this pattern paper. I'll add half an inch on the up and I'll add half an inch on the down. And I'm going to label it. This side is going to be my center front, meaning it's going to be on fold whenever I'm cutting on my fabric. So I'm going to join all these dots together. The half an inch on the top and on the down is my stitching allowance. I'll also go ahead and label this part the center back, meaning it's not going to be on fold. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. I'm done cutting. We are going to label this B. So the next thing we are going to do is to cut out our seal. Since we already have our A and B, so we have the crown, we have the body, we are going to go ahead and cut out the flare. So for the flare, I'm still going to divide my round edge circumference divided by 3.12 and it gave me 6.7. So whatever measurement you have is what you are going to divide by 3.12. Don't forget, don't use my measurement. So I'm going to use this pattern paper. The pattern paper is not folded, it's just one pattern paper. I'm going to place my tape on the tip like this and I'll take the 6.7 that I got. I'll take it round just like you see me doing, as if I'm cutting out a flare. So after doing that, I'm going to join all these points together. after doing that, the next thing I'll do is to determine how long I want my flare to be. So for me, I'm going to take 3 inches because I don't want it to be too long. I want this hat to be very portable. So I'm going to place my tape from the first circle and I'll take 3 inches all the way around, and then I'll connect all these dots together. So I'm going to go ahead and add stitching allowance to the upper part of this flare. I'll be adding 0.5 inches, that is half an inch, all the way. I'll do that just for the upper part. I'm not going to add any stitching allowance to the down. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut. I am done cutting. So we have our C, which is the flare, our B, which is the body, and our A, which is the crown. So we are going to use this to cut on our fabric. So we'll start with the A. I've already gone ahead to use A to cut out my fabric, and I'll show you guys how to cut A using my lining. So I'm going to bring in my lining like this, and I'll place the pattern paper on it like this. I'll pin it down and I'll just trace out what I have on the pattern paper. So that is it for the A. As you guys can see, I'm using Ankara fabric and lining because this is my first attempt. So I'm done cutting A. For B, like I said before, the part that I labeled the center front is going to be on fold. So I'm going to bring in my lining and I'm going to fold my lining into 2 like this, and then I'll place the center front on the folded part of this lining. So if you don't understand, just look at what I'm doing. I'm going to place my pattern on the center front of this pattern on the folded edge of this lining. I'll pin it down and then I'll go ahead and cut. So we are done cutting B. We'll go ahead and cut out the C, which is the flare. So for the flare also, we are going to label one part the center front and it's going to be on fold. So I'm going to place this on my lining. I'm going to fold my lining into 2 just like I did for B, and then I'm going to place one end of the flare on the folded edge. So let me just label it for you guys to see and understand. So this part that I labeled center front, I'm going to place that part on the folded side of this lining. I'll also pin everything down and I'll go ahead and cut. So we are done cutting, guys. We have our A, our B, and our C, so we can start joining everything together. So for the A, I have 2 pieces, one for the lining and one for the fabric. For the B, I have 2 also, and for the C, I have 2. So I'll be joining the lining to the lining and the fabric to the fabric. I'll be joining the lining off camera and I'll show you guys how to join the main piece. So I'll start by joining A and B together, the crown and the body. So what I'll do is to notch the middle part of the body, and then I'll fold the crown into 4 just like it was before, and I'll give it a notch. After doing that, I'm going to place the body on the crown and I'll sew all the way around using my half an inch allowance that I left earlier. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, just look at what I am doing. So what I'm doing right now is pinning the body to the crown. So I'll pin all the way around and I'll go ahead and sew using my stitching allowance. So I've gone ahead to sew the crown and the body, and this is what I have not closed the back yet. So whatever you do for the main piece, make sure you are doing the same thing for the other piece. So the next thing I'll do is to join the flay to the body. So I'm going to place the flay right sides facing each other on the body, and then I'll go ahead and sew. So I'm done sewing, and this is what I have. The next thing I'll do is to close the back. So I'm going to just fold it over like this, right sides facing each other. I'll sew from the beginning to the end. I'll turn it over like this, and then I'll close my crown. I've already gone ahead to do the same thing for the lining. After sewing, this is what I have. The next thing I'll do is to notch around so that everything lays flat. After doing that, I'm going to join the main piece and the lining together, and I'm going to join from the back. I'm going to just place them on each other like this, right sides facing each other, and then I'll pin all the way around. And after pinning, I will go ahead and sew, and I'm going to leave 2 inches allowance that I'll not sew. I'm going to use that part to turn everything inside out. So after doing that, I'll come back and show you guys the next step. I'm done sewing. The next thing I'll do is to notch around like this, and then I'll use the allowance that I left. I'll use it to turn everything inside out, just like you see me doing. After doing that, this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to close the opening that I left, the opening that I used to turn the cap inside out. I'll fold it inward like this, and then I'll stitch on it. The next thing I'll do is to iron this hat using my tailor's arm. So I'm going to place the hat on the on my tailor's arm like this, and I'll go ahead and iron everything out. I'm done ironing, and this is what the hat is looking like. So the last step is optional. You can choose to do it, and you can choose not to do it. So I'm going to be leaving a picture on the screen. I'm going to take 1/4 inch all the way around from the beginning of this hat. I'll take 1/4 inch. I'll use my chalk to mark it, and I'm going to sew around this hat. So you can do 3 stitch, you can do 4, you can do 5. It depends on how you want it, and if you don't want to stitch it, you can just iron it. But for me, I'm going to stitch. So I'll go ahead and stitch, and I'll come back and show you guys. So I did 4 stitches, and this is what it looks like. Yeah, so that brings us to the end of this video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe if you are not subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.